And gentlemen, the show is about to begin.
Hello and welcome to the True Pop Culture 7 show. I'm your host, True Pop, here to laugh and think about pop culture stupidity. I haven't streamed in God knows how long, but bit of technical difficulties on my side, so apologies for that. But yeah, The Penguin is a show that somewhat recently finished, and it was surprising to say the least. I didn't have really high hopes going into it, thinking about it, but after that first episode really hooked me in. I thought, okay, I have to talk about this with some people somehow by the time this show finishes. So that is what we'll be doing today, discussing all the episodes and little detailed thoughts. And with me, I have Golden Age and Kratos as well. He'll be joining us later. Uh, Golden Age, how you doing, sir? You tell the people what you do and some introductory thoughts about the Penguin.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Yeah, if anyone doesn't know, I also create videos on YouTube talking about all sorts of pop culture, you know, the usual. I mainly sort of specialize in Doctor Who because that's my favorite franchise, but I delve into, you know, DC, Marvel, all that sort of stuff. And I also watched The Penguin and loved it. And as for me, I was a bit like you. I wasn't really like expecting much from it. I thought this would be another show that 1 or 2 years down the line I'd go, well, I've got some free time, I'll go check that out. But I was receiving lots of messages from people saying, dude, you need to watch this. This is like great. And I was like, well, they're probably just over exaggerating. And then I was watching all my usual streams and people were like, well, I watched The Penguin. Oh, wasn't that amazing? And I'm like, hang on a minute, like a lot of these people are usually very critical of modern entertainment, so you know, if they're loving it and just general audiences are loving it, I thought, well, I'll go give it a shot. So I remember booting it up and thinking, I really hope I like this, but then the first 10 minutes I was like, oh, there's something special here. Like, this is going to be a good one, and for many reasons it works as a show within the DC universe, but also just subjectively a very good show, and just how it's written is very, very tight, it's structured very well. And that's good to see as well. A lot of these shows nowadays, they don't really tend to use their structure quite well. Like an episode or two will be filler and you have some just nonsense in there. But this actually knows, right, we've got 8 episodes, we've got this much amount of time, we need to use it effectively. And the show does that.
No, definitely. And when do you remember when it was announced and everyone was just going, Penguin? Seriously, the guy that was in the Batman for like 5 minutes doing a show about him.
That's an odd choice. Why'd they do that?
Yeah. I didn't really understand it because I didn't feel like...
Yeah, it was just like, well, what's all this about? This is a weird choice.
Yeah, because it's... Out of all the shows you could make in the Batman, I guess Catwoman would be a choice, but Penguin... I don't know what they were thinking about that, but I suppose now having watched the show, it was to develop kind of that crime-ridden city a bit more. Have a look inside, basically, and it was definitely worth it because it definitely reminds me of like a lot of mafia shows. And yeah, that first episode really did hook me in. It was very well written, I would say, because you get this image of Oz, obviously, right after Batman 1, scrounging in the dirt, and him having this nice chat with the son of Falcone, and then things escalate. Just that first scene alone, just like, okay, I'll give this show a chance. Like, it was interesting how easily it kind of sucked you in.
Yeah, and so yeah, after watching the Batman, I had an opinion of the Penguin. I mean, he's only in it for like 5 or 6 scenes. I think it's like 8 or so minutes he's actually in the film, and I think Colin Farrell did a very good job in that film. But the character didn't really like impact you that much to where you were like, this guy needs a series or a film of his own, you know, because he was kind of well, not even a secondary character, more of like a, you know, third or fourth tier character. But no, but that's what a good show should do, or a good film should do. It should take a character that you think, this is just a boring character, there's no potential here, and then say, well, look at what we can do with this character, and you know, look how amazing this is. And the show definitely did that. I mean, to get for people from going, oh, this is going to be nothing, to this is the biggest thing on TV right now, you need to see this every week, it does take a lot of skill. And I do praise Matt Reeves, the showrunner, Lauren LaFranc, I believe her name is, and all the writers involved, because they've just created an absolute masterpiece that you can kind of view independently of everything else. You don't really have to have seen the Batman, the first minute or so with all the news clips kind of explain all that context in a way that feels meaningful. It's not just oh, here's your exposition dump. It's preparing you for, right, this is what's just happened and this is what's going to happen. Here's the situation Penguin finds himself in, and it kind of plants all those little seeds. You get mentions of the Falcone family, you learn about all the struggles within the family, and then you kind of get an idea of, right, this is where we're going with the show, which it does take many twists and turns, because I think the first 3 episodes are kind of like an act 1, and then the middle part with 4, 5, and maybe 4 and 5, they kind of take you in another direction, and then 6, 7, and 8 are really the end game of it. So no, it's always keeping you on your feet and literally on the edge of your seat, because all these episodes are just ending and new explosive things are happening, and you can't wait for the next week.
Yeah. Before we get into detail with some of the episodes, I did want to get your thoughts on the Batman in general. Really dumb title, that the Predator, the Batman. Kind of think of other titles, geez. But because this show takes right after the Batman, we kind of have to mention it. I have a love and hate relationship with this movie. I'm kind of mixed on it. I want to like it as much as people do on the internet. You know, there's, oh, the cinematography is gorgeous. Oh, this first scene was gorgeous, and blah, 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 blah. But the things I hate about it is just the ending. Right after Falcone's death, I just thought, what the hell is going on with this movie? It's a big thing. I really didn't like the Riddler towards the end. I hated the idea of turning him into a 4chan Redditor. I think that makes him a lot less intimidating. It's modernizing the villain, which I really don't think you should do. I don't think you should modernize the Riddler. They just, I feel like Matt Reeves like read some dumb Reddit comments he didn't like, and he was just like, and now I'll make them the villain in my story, and then that kind of thing. Because Matt Reeves, he's pals with JJ, so he kind of, I guess he has this kind of, I don't know, need to modernize stuff, like update it for modern audiences kind of philosophy, which I don't think Batman needs at all. I think Batman works best in kind of, well, he worked best with Michael Keaton, I suppose, like stylistically, this kind of old-fashioned style. I don't know if I can place a date, especially with the animated series, of when exactly those took place. There were deleted scenes with the Joker, with Barry Keoghan. Keegan, I guess that's how you pronounce it. I can't say I'm a fan of those. Joker is kind of like all disfigured, and his face is kind of. I'm glad they deleted that scene, but I'm kind of worried that they'll take that Joker that we saw further, because I did not like that interpretation. What else didn't I like? I said the Joker. I said the Riddler. There was something else I didn't like about the movie that I'm forgetting. Yeah, that it's very grounded. A very grounded world. Hello, Hyperbolic Ninja. Hi to you in chat. Thanks for stopping by. It slipped my mind. What? There was a third point I wanted to make that I didn't like about the Batman. Basically, it's kind of realistic interpretation. I'm pretty sure Matt Reeves said some stuff that I'm not particularly happy with. That he wants to make a realistic interpretation of the Batman, as realistic as possible. And I'm not kind of happy with that, because we already have a realistic interpretation of the Batman, and that's the Nolan trilogy. We've had that. I'm kind of like, I want to see the giant penny in the Batcave. I want to see the giant dinosaur. Right? I want him to fight bizarre villains like your Mr. Freeze, like your freaking Ra's al Ghul, or what have you. Like, a lot of people actually speculating in the Batman Part 2, Mr. Freeze will be the villain. I don't think that's happening, because Matt Reeves is allergic to kind of comic book stuff. A freeze gun is not realistic. That just makes me think he's probably not going to do Mr. Freeze. I'm worried about the villain in the next movie. And yeah, I get, those are my kind of criticisms for the movie. Everything else is great. Robert Pattinson surprised me. He's good in the role. What's the Alfred actor called? I'm blanking on his name.
Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis, yes. His Alfred, great. His relationship with Bruce, fantastic. The way it's shot, great. Gotham feels like its own unique city. In The Dark Knight, it just kind of felt like New York. It's funny, because in Batman Begins, it feels like a city. And then it goes to Dark Knight, and it just feels like New York. What else? No, I liked its style. I loved the first scene, no doubt about it. Very comic booky, and I liked his monologues, because in comics you always get that thought kind of bubble or rectangle, should I say? There's a lot to like about the Batman, but there's a lot of stuff that I kind of holds me back from liking it fully. And before we were live, you were talking about carry on this world. I'm not sure if I want this world to carry on. I'd be perfectly happy if it just ended at 2. Because I do want to see a very comic booky Batman. Even wearing the blue costume, which I don't see Robert Pattinson wearing anytime soon. But what about you? What were your thoughts on the Batman?
Well, I remember before I actually saw the film and I'd seen all the trailers, I was looking quite forward to it. But I think my general experience with the film is I kind of thought that it should have had more of an impact on me. But I think it's the type of film, and I'm going to have to rewatch it, that it's going to get better over time, just because I appreciate some of the aspects of the film more and more that I see of it, in terms of posts and YouTube videos. So I'm really going to have to go back and give it another viewing. But the cinematography is very, very good, and the way it's shot is very, very good, and how how Matt Reeves attached the cameras to the side of the vehicles to give those unique perspectives. You had some POV shots, just some very interesting camera techniques were used in the making of that film. And no, visually, because that's probably something I should touch upon. I know a lot of people love The Dark Knight, and it is a very good film, but visually, and I think visuals are an important aspect of any Batman film. It doesn't really have any of that. It's just as you mentioned, like New York. It's just a random city. It's not Gotham. Batman Begins does it very well with giving you this realistic take, but it's a realistic take on Gotham. But it is a city, but there's a bit more to it. There's certain elements of it, like the Narrows and just the inner city with the steampunk style train that goes through the sky. It looks a bit more than just your average city, which I think that movie does very well. And I think the Batman does have the visual flair that a Batman film does need. It has those those gothic buildings, all that architecture. You have just certain shots. It's filmed in a way that I think a Batman film should look, and it does have that extra edge to it. As for the Riddler, I agree. The third act kind of ruins the character. I don't really understand what the character's motivation is in that film, because throughout you're led to believe that, oh, he's like Batman. He's exposing all the corruption and he's hoping that society can heal itself. But then in the final act, when he blows up the dam and all these people are dying, that's kind of a bit like, that goal is a bit antithetical to his overall idea, because if his idea is to take out all the elites and get the people to realize all the corruption so that they can, help each other out and you can have a new and prosperous Gotham, and then you start killing everyone, that's a bit like, what? It's like, I don't know how to compare it. It's just so weird. Like the two actions are just. So why would you go in and like take out all these powerful people individually to try and get people to realize, and then just go, oh, screw it, we'll just take out everyone? Like there's a big leap there from the first goal to the second. I just don't really get it. And I think why the Batman, in terms of the Riddler, pissed off a lot of people is because this film, when they were doing all the marketing and all that, they were kind of saying, oh, Jim Carrey's Riddler was not an accurate interpretation. It kind of messed up the Riddler as a character. We're going to redeem the character. And then they just went totally stray. So people were like, well, what's the point of this Riddler? It's just a further, trashing session on the main character from the comics. Robert Pattinson, I think he's good as Batman. The Bruce Wayne needs a little work, but I can kind of forgive that, because that's kind of the message of the film, that he's gone so down this road of vengeance that he's forgotten his humanity. I mean, there's some scenes like when he wakes up after his first night out and he goes over to Alfred and the sun hits his face and he starts like a vampire, like kind of shivering, and because that, it goes to show that he's not out during the day, he doesn't really see the sun, he's so corrupted by all this vengeance. So I can kind of forgive it for that, and we've already been told that the Batman Part 2 will focus more on him as Bruce Wayne and building up that side of his character. But the one thing I do really like about the Penguin is that it's shot similarly to the Batman, so there's that seamless flow there. You can believe that this is the same Gotham, because you see a lot of familiar locations, the orange hues, just all the cinematography tricks from the Batman are used in the Penguin, which was a purposeful thing, because no episodes of the Penguin are directed by Matt Reeves, so it was obviously a conscious choice. Right, we want to replicate the style of the Batman. As for this world, I think it should continue, and I do get your criticism that you can't really have a full-fledged Batman world with Reeves's direction, because he's ultra realistic and things like this. But as I made the comparison between this world and the world of the Nolan trilogy, this one is a little bit more supernatural, a bit more fantastical compared to the Nolan trilogy. And I think there is an argument to be made that Mr. Freeze can work in this universe. It's a bit like when people try to differentiate between science fiction and fantasy. I don't really I don't really see a difference between the two. They're both the same thing. It's just the reasoning behind the mechanics are different. Like, for example, like in sci-fi, you could have a teleportation device. The same thing can work in fantasy. You just explain it as the person disapparating. It's entirely the same thing. It's just different means of explaining it. So I think they could go down the route of a Mr. Freeze, but just really try and explain everything that works in his suit and the gun. They just have to go really in depth with it. They can't just present the idea to the audience. They'd have to really try and explain away some of the aspects of it.
Yeah, they would need to explain away.
I'm not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I see what you mean. They will need to explain also his wife's disease, what exact disease, how on earth does his hibernation technology work. You need to do a lot of legwork for Mr. Freeze, and I don't think they did a lot of legwork for the Riddler. So I think for Batman Part 2, it will hugely depend on what villain they use and how they do them. For me
Yeah, sorry I'm late, by the way, but I think
hey, Kratos.
I think Mr. Freeze is actually really simple because all you need to do is give him tanks of liquid nitrogen, and that can be.
I'm scared they'll do that. I'd rather have the freeze ray gun than just.
Well, that's basically what liquid nitrogen is. You shoot it out of a hose and it'll freeze stuff that it hits, right? And that's bad enough as far as like, getting hit by that. It's pretty much gonna do the same thing to you as his freeze gun does in the animated series. But like, I think it'd be pretty simple to just do something like that, and even make it so that like his his suit requires some kind of liquid nitrogen cooling for whatever reason, and then like it's not even originally a weapon. He just he gets into some altercation and he like just like breaks a hose off and like fires liquid nitrogen at somebody.
Yeah. Right? So Kratos, well, before we were going into our thoughts on Batman, Batman and Batman Part 2, before going into the show, what were your thoughts on the movie? And do you want to see it continue? Because the Penguin is basically a continuation of the Batman.
So I came into this conversation. You were talking about how Reeves wasn't really involved in the writing of the show. I think, like most people, I kind of agree that the first kind of 2/3 of the Batman movie was pretty good, and then the ending kind of fumbled the landing. And yeah, so if I like whoever's idea it was to take the character that was developed in the movie, give him his own show and like elaborate on it in the way that they did. They should really be at least writer's credit in the movie. If the sequel, I think that would work.
Definitely. What were your thoughts on the Batman continuing on? Do you really like it, and do you want to see it on? Because Golden Age also wants to see it continued, and I don't particularly want to see it continued. You can cut it
really just depends, because I wasn't expecting the Penguin to be good at all. And so if if it's more similar to the Penguin, then yes. If it's looking like it's going to be more of the last third of the Riddler, or the Riddler and the Batman, then probably not.
That is a good point. Like if they pull another Riddler to another Batman villain,
right? And it sounded, or it looked like they were gonna be setting up the Joker in the last, the end of the movie.
No, not a fan. No,
I don't really like that.
I know everyone likes that, is pretending to like that deleted Joker scene, but I don't know what there's. I don't buy it. Like, really?
Yeah, I don't want another Batman film with Joker as the main villain. I think that character has been reinterpreted so many times. I would rather have a lesser known character like a Mr. Freeze, or I know this is less likely in this universe, but a Clayface, or just another villain. We should be trying to lift these other characters up instead of just constantly showing off the same characters. I mean, like one of the things the MCU earlier on did very well was that it brought these D-level characters up to A tier. Now everyone knows them. That's what we should be doing with these films and shows. We should be taking these characters, which no one really knows, and making them fan favorites. Like the Penguin, I'm sure, you know, a lot of people love Danny DeVito's Penguin and perhaps the Penguin from Gotham, but I think this show has really given the Penguin kind of household name status, which is what they should try to be doing. I don't know, none of us know really who the main villain of the Batman Parts 2 is going to be, but I think there is a fair case for Mr. Freeze, because in the Penguin, we gradually see more and more snow come down. So there's this idea that it's going into winter, and Matt Reeves has said that this the Batman Parts 2 is going to take place not long after the Penguin. So we could be seeing another winter-themed Batman film, which would make sense for the Mr. Freeze to be in there. But also, we could also see the Court of Owls. I know there was a lot of owl imagery in the Batman. There's lots of owl imagery in the Penguin, especially when he goes into the courthouse. There's all these themed curtains, and they have owls on them. But perhaps he's aiming for those to be like the big villain of the universe, you know, so they're going to be the villain of Parts 3 if that ever happens.
You know, the worst thing we could get is in Batman the Animated Series, I believe the first episode the Joker is in is a Christmas episode, and
oh no,
that would just be the worst. And that is one of the worst Batman Animated Series episodes, I think. Just not a very good episode.
I do remember starting it and just this Christmas episode. I'm like, what am I watching here? I never finished up the show. Yeah, but you know, you're definitely right. Hopefully, it's not the Joker. Trying to think, like, I mean, it is called Mr. Freeze. I could definitely see Court of Owls. I think that suits this world tremendously. But then again, I think I'd be more interested in James Gunn's Batman than this Batman.
I mean, Mad Hatter's another good one they haven't really done. They've done Ra's al Ghul, Scarecrow, Riddler. I'm just going down the list.
Oh, what do you guys think about the theory that apparently the Doctor in Arkham Asylum,
Julian Rush?
Yes.
Well, here's the thing, and I want to know what you guys think about this, because I've seen the posts that Julian Rush was meant to be Jonathan Crane, but when they were doing rewrites, they changed up the character. Now I don't know what the intention is there. Maybe Scarecrow is the villain of the Batman Parts 2, and Matt Reeves had this idea of who Scarecrow is, and then he went, wait, you're also doing Scarecrow. Well, that doesn't work. You're going to have to take him out. Maybe they were doing that, but I don't know about you guys, but for the first 7 weeks, I suppose it could still work, but I was under the impression that Julian Rush is not a real person. Now, let me explain. I think he's real in Arkham and in all that, but if you notice, he never interacts with anyone else apart from Sophia. He never interacts with anyone else apart from the odd bodyguard opening a door for him. Right. He never has a line where he says something to any other character. Now, after I saw episode 7, I thought, oh well, he's interacted with Oz's mum, so he is a real person. But then I went back and noticed that yes, she's looking in his direction, but she never actually says anything, and it could be explained away with her dementia. He never says a line to anyone else, and I'm still under the impression that maybe that could be what they're going for, because are we just meant to assume that he got his job back at Arkham after, you know, Sophia got imprisoned? He just like automatically signed up to be rehired there, and he never says anything to her in her cell where there's no cameras or anything about the events of. He just treats her again like another patient. And I remember seeing 3 or 4 videos on YouTube of people saying, is Julian Rush real? And I was thinking, oh, thank you, because I thought I was going mad. Maybe he is a real person, and again, it's just because of the rushed rewrites that they didn't really have time to make him interact with any other characters. But I think there's a good case to be made that he's a hallucination, because he only ever appears when Sophia is in trouble, she doesn't know what to do, and he comes in to reinforce her, you know, like, you should continue going after the Penguin. Right, I'll continue going after the Penguin. He sort of he represents like more of her subconscious than anything, because he never says anything to any other character, even when what was it in the finale when Sophia and Julian are shooting at the Penguin. He never acknowledges him. Like it's like Penguin just sees Sophia. Now again, it could be a result of the rewrites, but if you go back and watch all the scenes with Julian, it's like no one else sees him. Like he's not even there. Like in the scene in episode 5 when Sophia puts on her mother's old coat and she enters the room and addresses the board of people who work for the Falcone family, he stands at the back of the room in like a dark corner, as if he's not like really there. He's something else. He represents something in her mind more so. I don't know if any of you have noticed that when watching, but it became very obvious to me after I think episode 5. I was like, this guy hasn't interacted with any other character. And like you may say when Sophia and Julian were getting it on and Sal was in the next room, you'd expect him to make some kind of like cheeky remark about like, oh, you know, you're busy, aren't you? But he never acknowledges that. It's like it didn't even happen. Again, it's just like in her head. And I thought that was gonna like go. I thought before I knew the whole Julian Rush was supposed to be the Penguin, I thought he was going to be revealed to be either not the Penguin, a Scarecrow, or be working for Scarecrow, and her hallucinating him was part of like some fear toxin thing. But yeah, no, I'm just before I saw the finale and I was seeing all these videos of people saying it, and I was like, oh, like other people have noticed that too. And I saw these like very detailed Reddit posts of people saying, if you look at this moment when this character should be looking at him, he doesn't, and like Julian never says anything to anyone. It's just so weird. Like again, when you consider the finale, it doesn't really disprove it. It kind of
reinforces it.
I think maybe
we maybe cut out.
Rehired him and all that.
There you go.
You might cut out for a sec, like 2 or 3 seconds.
Oh.
But yeah, I really like that idea. I'm gonna pay attention to that on my next watch through.
There was meant to be a Arkham Asylum show, which I was really interested in because I feel like Arkham Asylum has a lot going on for it. Like the founder is absolutely batshit insane. It's gothic kind of architecture. The numerous Batman villains that are in there, all with their absolutely maddening stories. I don't know about you, but this is my point of criticism for the show. I was kind of disappointed in the asylum. It just looked like a modern day prison thing. Same with the Joker in Joker Part 2.
Was it also
it just looked like a modern day prison to me. Like no one so far has done Arkham Asylum justice, I feel, in any movie. And I was hoping maybe the show will show us kind of like a gothic architecture kind of really interesting setting. But no, it just looks very modern in a way, which I kind of don't want for this.
Was it also, I didn't notice any men in there. It was kind of like a women's prison, whereas Arkham Asylum is co-ed.
I was hoping maybe to see I don't know, a Hugo Strange portrait somewhere in the back, you know? Because I was watching this show on a week-to-week basis, and it was really annoying me and my older sibling that there weren't any efforts to world build. Like, is there no Wayne Corp in the background, or is there no kind of, I don't know, references to other stuff? We didn't really spot any.
You want to know? Somebody brought up an interesting theory around. I think it was when episode 7 was coming out, and they were saying how it might be possible that Bruce Wayne was in the series and he was just in disguise. He was in his Master of Disguise thing. And so when I binged through the entire show in one day after episode 8 was out. And so when I was watching through it, I was on the lookout for characters that might have just been in disguise. And then for a while, I thought it was going to be Link towards the end, because Link stepped in a few times. He saved Vic's life by like punching him. He kind of initiated the whole thing at the end where he got in contact with Vic and got the Penguin kind of saved out of that situation, right?
Mhm.
So there was a few things I was thinking that he was just going to be like forget the actor's name, him in disguise. It would have been an interesting twist, but probably not allowed for I guess they'd call that yellow face reasons.
Yeah, definitely. It's
There's other ways that I was thinking they could have world built a little better too.
It's interesting. Let's talk about Oswald Cobb.
Actually, really quick before we
sure.
move on from I'm blanking on his name. We were just talking about him. The doctor, Julian. Yeah. There's a character in the Batman the Animated Series that's actually a lot more similar than who we were talking about, and I was trying to figure out who it was, and I can't find it, but it's basically he's kind of like he's operating this resort, and then Bruce goes there, and he gets hooked up to a machine, and then he like looks into his memories, and he has like his memories show up on the screen, and then he basically gets this like VHS tape of proof that Bruce Wayne's Batman. Then tries auctioning that off to some of the other villains.
Something like Mad Hatter would do.
It's similar to Mad Hatter, but it's a different character, and I think he's just a one episode in the animated series. And I was trying to find it, but
I was thinking like, who could this character be? Is it just his own character, or is he someone? Yeah.
But as far as like using a machine to look into people's memories, essentially, that's kind of what he does with Penguin's mom. It's very, very similar. Let me see as we move on. Let me see if I can figure out who that character is.
Okay.
I'm looking it up.
So his Oswald Cobblepot. That's what he should be named, but for some reason, I don't know if it was the showrunner that said this. You mentioned her name, Golden Age. They specifically said that his name is just Oswald Cobb, and that they didn't think Cobblepot was a realistic name. So they just changed it to Cobb, which I kind of find really stupid. Like, just name him Cobblepot. There's not a problem with that.
I think the reason was it was Cobblepot sounds like aristocratic.
Okay.
Yeah. So because the Penguin in this is very different in that he doesn't come from some rich noble family. He's just your everyday guy. They thought that Cobblepot just didn't really fit, which I think is stupid. I mean, there's kind of not a positive to that, but it doesn't really bug me as much because I think his surname Cobb is only mentioned like 2 times in the show, so I can kind of just look past it. But yeah, I don't like it. It reminds me of Corn on the Cob. That's what I think of every time I hear it. It's like, it's awful. I prefer Cobblepot. I don't care if it sounds a bit fantasy or fantasy-like. Just throw it in there. Everyone wants it. It's a bit ridiculous. I mean, they did the same thing with the Riddler, didn't they? They called him. Yeah, they called him Edward Nashton, which I know Nashton has been used in some comics, but the Riddler in the Batman is called Edward Nashton. He's not Edward Nigma. So I know people had an issue with that at the time, and I still do. I just give them their names. Like, we're talking about a world where there's a guy dressed up as a bat. Like, is it that much of a stretch to say that this guy's second name is Cobblepot?
I mean, if it sounds like too aristocratical, like there's people named King Richard or whatever after Richard, like this shouldn't be an issue. If not, it's like it'd help you kind of emphasize, like, oh, look at this guy who's poor on the streets, crippled, named Cobblepot. Oh, what an aristocratic name, and you can kind of build that up, like, oh, he wants to kind of earn his namesake or something like that. You could actually,
or even like
positive.
Even like maybe historically his family's name was that, but because they became more working class, they either with his mom's generation or his generation, he decided to change it to something more, fitting. Not so.
Yep.
That would have been.
If anything, I think Oswald sounds more aristocratic than Cobblepot.
Yeah. True. Throughout. I want to get to the finale because we're approaching 40 minutes quite quickly to that 90-minute mark. But I do want to get to the finale, but I want to say like this show started off with like a very sympathetic Oswald. Just, kind of working class. Did you guys have any suspicions about him? Or were you kind of like, you know what, I kind of support this guy, even though I know he's duplicitous and whatnot. Like, I kind of feel for him that he wants to be higher up. I definitely...
Yeah, you were kind of rooting for him a little bit because in a show about a bunch of villains, you kind of like, you still want to root for somebody, right? Even though they're all villains. But as far as like being sympathetic, I felt like, the show was pretty good at balancing out, showing you like, here's reasons for why people are a certain way, and then still showing you that like, yeah, but they're still evil, and it's not okay to act that way.
Yep, definitely. Golden Age, were you feeling any sympathy during like the first earlier episodes toward Oz?
No, I was never feeling sympathetic towards Oswald. Now I think there's a little bit of a difference between like understanding someone and then feeling sympathetic towards them. As the series goes on, you definitely get the idea of why Oswald is kind of the way he is and why he has this kind of survival instinct. But I never really felt sorry for him. I mean, when you get to episode 4, you see him just throw Sophia under the bus. He doesn't care. Like, and that's kind of emphasized at the end of episode 3 as well. Like, you could have helped me, you could have done this. And he said, look, I wanted to climb the ladder, and by throwing you under the bus, I was able to do that. So, boo-hoo. Yep. So I think the show, more than anything, kind of like tricks the viewer into... They kind of get comfortable with the Penguin, and then they go, right, I'm going to remind you, this guy's a villain and you shouldn't like him. You're like, no, but we were loving Oswald. No, but that's your fault, because we told you at the start you should never have liked the Penguin. You did. So, joke's on you.
And I think that's best encapsulated in that in the first episode where he shoots the guy, and in that moment, you as a viewer feel kind of like a little bit of catharsis, like, yeah, go for it, dude. This is, that guy was...
Shoot that guy dead. Yeah, he was...
Yeah, awesome. Like, that guy's a jerk. Just, and then, like, you already know he's a villain, and the situation is kind of like there's a power vacuum, and, you're rooting for him. You might not necessarily be sympathetic to him, but then pretty much immediately after he shoots him, he's like, oh God, what have I done? And now you're like, oh, well, now we're into it. And then you start seeing like all the consequences of that happening. And so, I think, I don't know, like, there's moments where you definitely, it's like exactly what Golden Age said. It's like they're trying to make you feel sympathetic for him, and then, immediately pull the rug out from under you, and it's a pretty good balance.
Yep.
I think that the show kind of maintains that notion that Penguin is a villain throughout. I mean, just in the first episode alone, I mean, as soon as Vic's use sort of runs out, it goes, right, look towards the sunrise, and goes to hit him around the head. I mean, that already shows you he only cares about people because he can use them. I mean, and at the end of the episode, when Sophia brings that kid to Oz and says, this guy says he saw you near the Iceberg Lounge, and Oswald's like, no, he's lying. She's like, well, I'm going to kill him. Is he lying? And she went, yeah, go do it, go kill him. And then he doesn't care because, at least his skin's been saved. And same with the second episode. There's that one guy who's working with Oz, and he's very loyal to him. And then when he's at the Falcone house and Sophia's going to interrogate him, as soon as his use runs out, he just stabs him. He's like, right, well, thank you for working for me, but, I care about myself more than you. So bye-bye. That's his
he's like
that's his thought process throughout the entire. Yeah, he's basically, what can you do for me? And then that's unfortunate, because the more that Vic comes to learn about Oz, the more that it becomes a liability. And I think the moment in the finale when Penguin sort of decided, right, I really do have to kill Vic, is probably in the courthouse when the councilman says you need to appear clean, And that's the moment where he was like, right, I need to clean up all the loose ends, and that includes Vic. Some people, I've watched some people's reactions, and they've said, oh, when Vic calls him family, that's when the switch goes off. I don't think that was the case. I think when he's in the court's house, that's when he decides. I think the reason why they think that it's the moment when Vic says family is because it kind of makes it a bit harder for Oz. Now, I don't think Oz is a sociopath. I think he does feel emotions, but but he knows that his goals, his goals triumph his emotions. Like a sociopath would not care for their family. Oz does care for his family, although it's a little bit more in depth than that. He only cares about them because they're close to him, and therefore they can reaffirm his decisions. But he does feel emotions. It's just that he has a very warped way of perceiving those emotions. Like, he does care for Vic. There's many instances throughout when Vic's been disrespected and he's been in that situation. So he's like, hey, don't insult Vic, and he gets Vic to stand up for himself because he does see himself in Vic. But ultimately, it's Oz, or, it's not going to be anyone else. It has to be Oz on top, and he's not going to let anyone take his place. So they gotta go.
I think that I'm more, I think you're right about, the seed of the idea was when he was in the courthouse, but I think I'm more along the line of when he mentioned he saw him as family, because what's the difference between Vic and his not his girlfriend? She's not a girlfriend, but he keeps her around, right? But he pays her. She kind of keeps
it's transactional.
It's transactional. Yeah, it's not, and she'll pretend to be his mom, and you can give him that that affirmation, but like that's he is willing to keep around people that he cares about and that don't necessarily make him look clean, like you were saying. But it's the idea that it's just business, or it's if he's actually considering somebody like family, like he does his mom, then that gives him a big weakness. And like if she ever got kidnapped, then he wouldn't care. He would just let her die, right? But he actually did care about Vic.
I was just gonna say, the woman, her name is Eve Carlo, which Basil Carlo is the name of Clayface. So is there some sort of reference there? Do we think they're kind of setting that up? Do we think they're going to do a sort of more like realistic take on Clayface, and perhaps he isn't this like shapeshifter, but is someone who like molds faces and wears them? And
if you just I don't want this, but if you go off of the disfigurement thing, then it could just be like Penguin has a son with her, and he's just totally disfigured.
That's funny.
Yeah.
No, I really hate changing characters drastically like that. That's exactly what I'm afraid of. Like, I know that at some point they announced a Clayface show and they cancelled it. I'm kind of happy that they did, because I think they would go in the direction that you're talking about, Golden Age, just make him an actor with a disfigurement or something dumb.
By the way, did we mention Hugo Strange earlier? Because that's the character that I was thinking of.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed he wasn't referenced in Alchemy Asylum scenes.
Because in the animated series, that's what I was talking about. He kind of like has this resort for rich people, and Bruce Wayne goes there to investigate it, and like he figures out through the hypnotism, or really he has a machine, but it's the exact same type of thing that he does in the show. And you kind of like looks into their past via their just like re-experiencing past events kind of thing. And in the cartoon, he auctions that information to the villains to for his Batman's true identity, basically.
Yep.
Going back to Penguin, and when he decided to kill Vic, I think sort of both of our theories kind of work based on what we know about Oz, because here's the thing. Oz is someone who is kind of very logical, and he sees, right, what is your value to me? Are you going to work for me? Are you going to, help me rise to the top? But also we're shown plenty of times that he acts on impulse. Like the reason he kills Alberto is because he says, no one's gonna remember you, you little bitch. So then he gets out his gun and starts firing. And same with his brother. They were making fun of him because they were hiding in a place he couldn't get to because of his disability. So he went, right, screw you guys. So I think it and also as well, another moment is I think that as we've shown earlier on in the flashbacks, that Sophia and Oz do have this very nice friendship going on. And part of what my theory about him being very logical, and that's why he decided in the courthouse, kind of works, because he saw, right, if I throw Sophia under the bus, I'll get a promotion. It's all going to work out. But also your theory about it's because he called him family and then there was that emotional trigger, that also works as well, because in the scene before he throws Sophia under the bus, she gets into the car and she's very angry and she says, Oz, shut up, you're just my driver, you're not my friend, da da da. So then that could have been the impulse which made him go, right, screw you then. And then that's when he decided to, right, I'm going to make things bad for you because you've made them bad for me. So both can kind of work based on what we know about the character.
And he's very impulsive, but he's also very instinctive. It's kind of the double-edged sword, right? Because a lot of times he's in the moment, he's trying to save his own skin, and just on instinct he's doing things. And I guess living a life like that, he learns to trust his instincts, but then it also comes out as these impulses that, like, if he acts on emotion in certain moments, like wow, gosh, you just said his name. I'm really bad with the names in the show. He killed her brother, Sophia's brother, at the beginning on impulse.
Alberto,
Alberto, yeah. And that it was on impulse and it was on emotion. It was the same kind of thing. It was right after he kind of put him down into his place. Sophia in the flashback put him down into his place. And then maybe when Vic said that thing about family, it was like a similar kind of thing where maybe he thought he was being manipulated or put into his place even. I don't know if
one moment that I really do like is in episode 2 when Sophia finds her informant or the person she was going to interrogate is dead, and then she alerts the family, right, secure the house, don't let anyone leave, and Oz is going to get out the door, but then the bodyguard's like, no, so you need to come into the living room, and he makes a really quick decision which does show how instinctual this sort of lifestyle is, because as soon as he's put into that room, in no time at all he decides to pick a fight with Johnny Viti, which gets all the bodyguards involved, which allows him to plant the knife on one of the bodyguards, which shows that quick thinking.
I was actually kind of confused by that scene because I thought he put the knife on Johnny in the
me too.
And
but it kind of worked out for the best when he put it in his
and then as the scene played out, basically, I realized later that I had just not seen it properly. But as the scene played out, I thought what had happened was he put the knife on Johnny, and Johnny felt it and then put it on the other guy. And that would have been a really interesting.
I think there may be something a bit deeper there, because Oz sees Sophia with that bodyguard quite a lot, and he knows that she's very paranoid. So to plant the knife on her bodyguard, and she's already unstable, that makes her even more paranoid that those around her are like, have some other intention. So I think maybe an argument could be made that perhaps he did plant it on the bodyguard because he wanted to make things worse for Sophia.
I think he did. I think I was just misinterpreting that scene. But he was the one who was guarding the room too, wasn't he? Was that the same guard that was guarding the informant?
It's the same guy. So what I'm trying to get at is that he was trying to mess with Sophia by making it seem like those around her, even the ones she thinks she can trust, are actually against her. So to further sort of make her unstable.
Definitely. But I also think that putting it on the guy that was guarding the room is the smart choice too, because he's one of the only people who could have gotten in there.
Definitely. I wanted to get back to this idea of you slightly mentioned it earlier, Golden Age, whether Oswald is a sociopath or not. My brother mentioned this during when he was watching the finale, and I can't help but slightly agree. Don't get me wrong. I know I'm gonna sound like I'm defending Oz here, and then I don't mean to. But I think Oz killing Victor was kind of narratively forced. Because, I mean, it's one thing to close a door in some tunnels and then just run away. And it's another thing to actively strangle and choke someone out. One is much more difficult than the other.
A lot more personal. He could have just shot him.
Definitely. So in the other, you actively need to choke him out. I'm just trying to think of the benefits of killing Vic.
Besides getting rid of liabilities.
Yeah. Because I think I'm leaning more so with Kratos. I think it was much more out of emotion. He saw the way his mother was treated, and he didn't want that kind of weakness again. He does give an interesting reason that I don't want, but I don't know. I do think it was kind of narratively forced. I do like that the show doesn't shy away from Oz being an outright villain, because we are in an age where we always have sympathetic villains like Maleficent. Oh, she is actually the good guy. The knight is actually evil, and he's gonna corrupt her with iron and stuff like that. Other examples, I forget them, but this show showed them that he's an outright villain. But I think it felt a little forced. I think it could have been done better. I'm not disagreeing with him killing Vic. I think there needs to be a little more to it in him killing it.
I get what you're saying about it being narratively forced, because it feels like he needed, because he came out on top at the end, it feels like he needed something that would kind of villainize him. And that's kind of like, the best thing you can do.
Always the plan for him to kill him. Yeah.
But the way that he killed him was like, if he had planned on killing him, would he have chosen to strangle him that way? Right. Because it's prolonged. It's probably like a really painful and stressful way to go out for Vic. Would he have wanted to put him out of his misery quickly because he liked him? Right. Mm-hmm. So that, to me, that kind of, it's that pushes it more towards it being like,
he's a sociopath.
Well, if it was unplanned, if it was just this spur of the moment thing, then I'm sure he had a gun on him, but maybe he didn't want to use his gun at that particular place. I don't know. If there's a reason.
I think he was always going to kill him, and I think it kind of makes sense. If he'd used a gun, then there could have been things that could have linked back to him. But by him strangling Vic and then sort of throwing away his ID, right? There's no gunshots, there's no apparent damage, so they could make the excuse that maybe it was just some random criminals that took him out, or perhaps he took his own life because of his family dying. Perhaps people could make those conclusions. I don't know. I'm still of the opinion that he was always going to kill Vic. But I don't know. That's the greatness about this show. There's so many different ways you can view these actions.
I think that was always an option for Oz. The point where he was, where Vic was talking about leaving town, and he told him to go. I think that if he actually did leave, then he would have been whacked soon after. As soon as Penguin was able to. But he came back and he saved him, and so
so maybe at first it was supposed to be a logical execution, but it turned into more of an emotional one, which is
there's also the parallel of the strangling with Sophia's dad.
The hangman. He's the new hangman. Yeah.
True. But I wonder if, I don't know if that was an intentional parallel or not.
Well, speaking of the Hangman, I remember when episode 4 came out, I was getting some messages from people saying, "Oh, what? Sophia isn't the Hangman? Oh, they've done another bait and switch." But no, because I was actually under the impression prior to episode 4 that Sophia isn't the Hangman, because if you listen closely to some of the dialogue, it makes sense. Like, for example, at the funeral place, when Oz goes up to Sophia and there's all these people in the street with the signs saying, put the Hangman back in prison or whatever. Sophia was like, do you believe what they all think about me? And, and all that. And in episode 3, when Vic's like, oh my God, Sophia's outside the door. She's the Hangman. And Oz says, kid, don't believe everything you read. So I think it was all, it was pretty clear to me prior to episode 4 that she isn't the Hangman.
Especially watching it all at once, it was, I never really had the impression that she actually was guilty of that.
Me too. Although I didn't like that she was like completely innocent and naive at first. Like, come on, there's a mob boss. Like, that something is up.
She was guilty in being complicit, right?
I think they kind of made her too innocent to start off with. I'm like, come on, be a little more mafioso-ish. There's no way you're this innocent.
They gave her the actual. That was a really good scene when she actually did kill somebody for the first time, and she's like, "I told you, I'm innocent." It was pretty. Yeah, it was pretty good. Like, clearly, you're not anymore. At least.
Yeah, and I like that Arkham Asylum is working brilliantly. They turn a normal person into someone even worse. Like, yes, that is exactly the problem. I am just really angry that your asylum looks like shit. I mean, come on, you can make a city look beautiful in all of these Batman shots, but you don't do anything with the asylum. It just looks like a standard asylum. Like, it annoys me.
Yeah, the scenes inside the asylum are very good because and this is common with a lot of like corruption stories that you watch. Like those scenes where like, for example, the guards try and get Sophia and the other person to fight, and then that person just ends up taking their own life, and then the guards strap her down and electrocute her, and she's like, well, I didn't do anything, and then that Ventress guy's like, well, the guards in there say you did, so, and you're like, oh, but because we know the truth, and you're like, it's a bit like a pantomime, you're trying to you're kind of telling the characters like, no, it's not true, and then they just go ahead and do the stuff anyway. That's what the scenes inside the asylum are very good at doing. And I mean, also, I'm not so much like against the idea of the asylum. I mean, I much prefer if it was like totally accurate to what Arkham Asylum is, but I mean, I kind of see this version of Arkham Asylum as like having different wings to it. They kind of mention that, so perhaps there's different areas, and I mean, you have to like keep into mind that this is like year 2 of Batman, so perhaps if this universe is to go on, we'll see a natural like degrading of everything. I mean, at the end of Batman Parts 1, that's kind of like it kind of changes everything, because there's all the flooding, the city is thrown into chaos, and what you have to remember is that those scenes in Arkham actually take place 10 years before Batman Parts 1. So now that there's Batman, all these villains are coming into it, perhaps there is going to be this transformation of, right, we're going to go into proper like Batman universe.
Yeah, especially with all of the, I was going to say the other thing that it's really good at illustrating is how corrupt it is, and how much influence that the I'm going to struggle with names this whole day, but her dad, whatever, how much influence he had to just like, make one phone call, and then she's just, put into this situation that she can't escape from, even though her brother's trying to help her out, right? Carmine, thank you, brain.
Definitely. Carmine was like a much bigger mob boss guy than I initially anticipated. In the comics, he was always kind of like, really cliche, but in here we get to see like some of his like really vile actions of, having all this blackmail stuff, of going on a rampage, strangling prostitutes, and it's just like, freaking hell! Like you like I'm glad you're gone now.
Yeah,
Did you
because
guys... Oh, sorry. Yeah. Go
well,
on.
what you were saying was like in the, I guess in the classic comics, characters like that were more like a means to an end to get you to the more rogues gallery type villains.
Definitely.
But in Batman the Animated Series, they played a much bigger part. I was trying to remember which. I'm pretty sure one of the families was involved in Robin's parents dying, which that would be an interesting thing to show in the second Batman movie.
That's a good point. Do we think there'll be a Robin in Batman Part 2?
If they go that way,
I don't think they will, and I don't think it suits.
I thought it was one of the Maronis that killed him in the show. Let me go check.
Because like if we are doing a Robin, I don't want him in this world because I don't think he'd suit, and I don't think they will do a Robin, which is furthermore why I wouldn't mind if like it ends at Batman Part 2.
No, it was Zuko.
Like, okay, let's have a Robin in a different Batman universe because I don't think he suits in this universe, and I don't think they would do him.
But
in this.
Yeah, it was Antonio Zuko in the show, and so he's like a mafia boss or like a low-level thug guy, right? So they could do something like, if they did it from that point of view, where like at the end of the first Batman or the Batman movie, he decides that he wants to start helping people more instead of revenge. A good follow-up to that would be helping Robin and tracking down his parents' killer to get justice, but not necessarily revenge. And that was a big plot element of in the animated series about how, Robin found out who it was, and so he was out for blood. And so Batman was trying to tell him, like, no, that's not the right way. I know it'll feel good in the moment, but it's not going to bring you any, long-term healing or anything, right? So that'd be an interesting theme to explore in a second Batman movie.
Because we do have confirmation that there will be for some reason it's Damian Wayne, The Brave and the Bold, the James Gunn movie. We only know Machete is directing it. That's about all we know about that particular Batman film. I don't know how audience will react to this of having two Batmans, and it's kind of confusing now which Batman movie is going to come first, The Brave and the Bold or Batman Part 2. I think the script is finished for Batman Part 2, so we'll see how that goes.
No, I don't think the script's been finished yet, but Robert Pattinson's just signed on to do a film with Nolan, so that probably pushes things back even further.
Wow.
That'd be interesting. A Christopher Nolan Batman with Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, I also think that this film by Christopher Nolan's going to be a period piece vampire film, which is going to be a lot of connections with like Batman and vampires and things like that. People are going to make those connections. It's kind of funny, you have Christopher Nolan and Matt Reeves, both have done Batman, and now you have Robert Pattinson, Matt Reeves Batman going over to Nolan when he should be doing this second one about a film with vampires, which is a bit thematically what like the Batman is about.
You got Man-Bat.
I think Matt Reeves said that the Penguin will be in all three if he does a third one, as a side villain.
Yeah, he's basically the kingpin of Gotham at this point, and so not having him in the next movie would be, well, one, it would waste all of the character buildup, but it wouldn't really make sense because now he's kind of positioned to be the main force that Batman has to go against for Batman's goals, right?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if he'll wear the monocle as well, and maybe have the smoke as well. That's always missing,
He had a cigar in one of the episodes.
Yeah. So I'm curious.
Will he play into his nickname?
I thought the finale was gonna like show some battle where like Sophia would damage his eye, and then in like the kind of flash forward, you'd see him wearing a monocle. I think they did kind of make reference to it when, and this is one of my favorite scenes from the finale when that guy's taking those eye drop drugs, and then Oz just shoots him through the eye. I think that, first of all, that's a really cool thing that they did with that. They could have just had him shoot him anywhere, but to have him put the drop in the eye and then for him to get shot through the eye, I was just like, oh, that's really cool. But I also think it was a reference to Oz's eye being damaged and therefore having to wear a monocle, which they didn't do, which kind of a disappointment. But hey, he got the suit, he got the top hat. Yeah, I can kind of say, yeah, I'll let him off on that one.
Real quick, did you think that detective was going to be Bullock?
No. I gave up for like any significant comic reference when they were like naming all these names, and it's just like no logos in the background apart from the bat signal at the end. Like, it's not going to be any references.
Well, because they specifically didn't name him when they introduced him, because like when he was in the bar asking for the drops.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to like look in the credits to see who he was, and it wasn't Bullock, right? But he kind of had the appearance of Bullock, the general disheveled nature, right? So when I saw him, and then it was revealed that he was a detective. Yeah,
was Bullock in Batman film by any chance? I don't know.
Film? Maybe once. I don't remember. But I know in the animated series,
Harvey Bullock was in Batman '89.
Was he?
Huh. Interesting. But
it's
interesting because there were a lot of policemen in the Batman, so I'm surprised he didn't make some sort of cameo in that film.
Yeah. But what I was going to say on the Penguin nickname was, I know one thing that would for sure get Oz to start kind of playing into that role, which would be if his underlings started calling him Penguin as a sign of respect, or like instead of it being this, you know how it was before where it was like this thing that people would call him to put him down or to like make fun of his limp, right? Whereas now it would be like, you could turn that and have his underlings, call him that as a sign of respect, like, oh, you're our Emperor Penguin or something like that, right? And that would kind of flip it around in his mind where he would see it as more of like this thing that could be played into, like, oh yeah, so maybe I will start,
Yeah.
Also, because he's like, now that he's in with the politicians, basically, he'd be wearing more fancy like tuxedo stuff. Yeah.
Yep. And there's this interesting kind of comparison I want to like. Penguins are usually like scavenger birds.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they don't really. They eat kind of like junk food of what they find usually. I'm not sure if that's for the entire species, but usually they just see what scraps are left on out there, and I think that's what Oz does in a way, kind of
fighting over scraps.
Yeah, like looks at this chaos of the situation and kind of thrives on that in a way. He's like a vulture throughout the show, using people, even that frickin' when Maroney. Clancy Brown's character.
Maroney.
When he faints, he gets really lucky with that, and he gets angry that he didn't beat him fair. That he had a heart attack.
And he still shoots him to make it look like he killed him.
Yeah. So he's.
Well, speaking of that scene, one thing I do like about it is that, and I don't know if anyone else sort of made this connection, but I did. When Sal is on the floor and he's like probably already dead, and Oz is speaking down to him, it's a bit like in the Batman Arkham games when you lose to a villain and they're standing over you and being like, "I beat you," and then you have to click respawn. It's a bit like that, really.
Yeah, I saw someone do an edit of that. Yeah, it's exactly like that.
Although the best meme to come out of this show is the reason why Batman isn't in the Penguin. He's collecting Riddler trophies.
Going on side quests, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty funny. But imagine if Edward actually did that. Just leave trophies and clues.
I did want to get. I don't know if you had this in the plan, but I did want to get to a few of the things I didn't like about the show.
Yeah,
They're kind of
go on.
sprinkling.
I think, what did I mention? Oh, I didn't like the Arkham Asylum design.
Yeah.
But yeah, go on.
As far as it not being the, another example of the kind of trash that we're getting, because it does have really good story, well written characters and everything, but you can see, I guess, kind of the remnants of maybe something that once was. If that, I don't know behind the scenes if it was ever like taken in a different direction to, tone down on that kind of stuff, but the foundation, you can still see it in the foundation. And the most obvious example of, well, before I go into this, it is possible to have these, injections from, these leftist writers and still have a good show. And so, but the biggest example of that is Vic, right? Because he's a Black Hispanic heritage person with a disability, right? It's like the trifecta of
speech impediment.
DEI. Yeah. And I can see that definitely being like, how in the past,
like a checkbox. Yeah,
exactly, right. But and how there's a lot of other shows and movies where you go into it and it's, oh yeah, the best example is Obi-Wan, right? You go into Obi-Wan and it's not about Obi-Wan, it's about Leia and it's about the black chick, right? And it's kind of a bait and switch, right? Whereas with this one, it was consistently about Penguin throughout, except for I think the one episode that was showing you Sophia's backstory. But I could easily see this being a show where the Penguin takes the back seat. Vic is the main protagonist. Sophia is a sympathetic villain. And, with her stuff, you got a lot of the feminism stuff mixed in. I don't know if you caught, when she was doing her activism before she went to Arkham.
Yep.
There was a line that was in there about, you can interpret it as like abortion rights.
Yeah, it was very feminist. Yeah.
So very feminist. And then there's a lot of socialism, communism inserts in various places, kind of like,
which is fitting because the whole place looks like a trash heap. So yes, this is what communism brings. But
you have like when Penguin is kind of rallying the all the other crime bosses, right? That's very much in line with against or what was it, like the communism idea of like the laborers taking control.
Right? See, is that presenting it in a good way or bad way? I would say in this case, bad way, because all the lower class people are kind of killing the higher positioned people and taking over and making the world for the worse.
And then, but there was also that line. So when Sophia killed her whole family, which that was an amazing scene. Real quick tangent on that, talking about how they're not sympathetic. They show you the reasons why they do things, and the things that they do are still terrible, but you're like, yeah, good for you. Right? That was an amazing scene. That was a good way to cap off her whole backstory, because like it builds up all this sympathy for her, and then she does something terrible like that and takes it all away. But so after she took over the family, she has that scene where they all come to the table, and she's saying like, this family has built up all this money on the backs of us, and the backs of the people doing the grunt work, right? And that's very much like that same message of communism, right? And or like putting a lot of emphasis on the laborers, and giving them the power. So, and then like wealth redistribution in that same scene, same thing. So I see all of these little things sprinkled in. I see them. They're not necessarily negative; they're neutral, I think, at best. But
they don't outweigh the quality of the show.
Right. Yeah. And then I think the last one, which is, it's one that kind of, so with Oz's mom, her her presence in the show, her involvement in molding him to be the villain that he is, right? It's all very well done. And like well written. She's a great character. And but the one thing that I noticed was, is this going to be a pattern? I hope not. I hope this isn't a pattern moving forward where you can't have a Batman villain stand on their own. Because and I know it was a different universe, but you also have the Joker movie where he is also very much emotionally influenced by his mom in that movie. And so you basically have these two Batman villains that are mama's boys, these two different universes, right? It plays well into the story, but are we going to have? Well, obviously, if you have Freeze, he's going to be very emotionally impacted by his wife. Are you going to have the same thing with everybody, right? Just maybe not necessarily their moms, but like, I can't help but notice you have two data points now where you have Batman villains that are mama's boys.
Yeah, and I can't help but feel like they'll do the same with the Joker, how this iteration of the Batman Joker, kind of, they might do the same thing of him just, being an orphan or bullied and kind of thing. When Joker is just kind of a simple, chaotic character.
Right. I like look at Heath Ledger. Like, he stands on his own. He has all of these different stories for his backstory, but they're all lies. So it doesn't matter what his backstory is, because he is enough of a force on his own to, like, you don't need, like, I don't need to know that he was abused as a child or all these other fake stories that he came up with, right? I think that's what makes him good. But yeah, I'm just like, it works well a couple of times, but I think if they keep using this, it's going to get real old real quick.
Yes, you do make a good point. One more thing. I forgot what I wanted to mention. But no, Batman Part 2, I think whether I like it or not will depend on the villain, definitely, and how they execute them. My one point of worry is the mayor of Gotham. I forget her name. She's
inclusivity
like this
woman.
yeah, inclusivity woman. Like, there is not a one stain on her, and she somehow wins. And in this rigged Gotham,
she's too pure.
Exactly. Like, there's this, like, what is she? Female Harvey Dent? That there's got to be some kind of dirt on her. So I'm a bit worried that that they might. I don't know what the plan is with her.
I think, to your point, she's either going to end up having some skeletons in her closet, and I think the saying is like or I don't know what the saying is, but it's this idea that, like, the more clean somebody looks on the outside, the more skeletons they have in their closet.
See, I think what they're gonna do is, okay, Batman, you don't need to participate in Gotham anymore. You don't need to fight for Gotham anymore.
Yeah.
The mayor has got this. She is
like the end of
virtue of Gotham.
Like the end of Dark Knight, right? The hero Gotham deserved, or whatever.
Exactly. Right? I'm worried they might post, like, the government can solve this issue. Like, we don't need a Batman anymore. Yeah. Batman, you've defeated the Penguin. You've defeated Mr. Freeze.
Idol worshipping government people is another trend.
I feel like they might do something like that.
Yeah, I could see that. That would suck. The other way is going down that path, but then making her a martyr. So somebody else comes in and, obviously she's ruffling some feathers, and so somebody else comes in and takes her out. I could see actually, you know what? Yeah, Harvey Dent would be a really good character to explore in this universe as well.
Yep.
That would kind of get you into the same, like what you were talking about. If it's in the same ballpark as what you were talking about, the same stuff they did with Harvey and Dark Knight, right?
Yep. See, I see a lot of downfalls this world could take, which is why I'm not confident in continuing it because Matt Reeves, J.J. Abrams, acolyte. Let me remind you guys. I'm just worried that he doesn't really have as creative of an idea to take Batman. I think he wants to. I do really think that he wants to retire Batman and maybe hand it off to, government people. Because there's this scene where, at the end of Batman 1, where he helps out like the police, in every day helping. He saves the drowning, and it's like they're implying like, oh, Batman should be a part of the police. Batman should be a part of the government. In order to help the people. No, he's a vigilante. He takes the law because the system is so bad.
Because it's corrupt, he has to.
Yeah, he has to take it into his own hands. But there's like a subtle indication at the end of Batman 1 that he needs to be a part of the official government officials in order to help people. And just that's. Yeah. I feel like what are we doing here?
Here's a theory for you, or a question that you can make a theory for. Why was the bat signal turned on at the end of the show? What villain do you think was enough of a reason for them to call Batman in?
That's a good question, because it couldn't have been Penguin, because they arrested Sophia. That's the official story.
Yeah. I mean, it was, I guess it was shortly after Vic's death, right?
It was, but they might not. That's actually Kratos. You just pointed out something that I may have just missed, because I don't think Gordon is signaling the Bat villain, the Bat signal, to arrest Oswald.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone knows as of yet that he's in power now. I don't. That it could be a different reason why the Bat signal is there, but I guess with the line, "Oh, no one's gonna stop me," it's implied that Batman's coming after him. But for what reason does the police have Oswald on his radar right now? I don't know. What would they have? What are they suspicious of the police? What is Gordon thinking? What does he have?
Yeah. If you go down the most obvious, the one that I guess the show's trying to make obvious is that Vic died. If they were able to identify him, then they would be able to see that he was tied to Penguin, right? And then, was the Bat signal even in the Batman movie? I don't remember.
It was.
Okay, so that exists already. I'll take your word.
GoldenAge, do you remember?
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, it does. Because remember, there's a whole thing in the film about when that light hits the sky, it's not just a call, it's a warning.
Okay.
Okay.
I haven't watched that in a while.
It is Batman early years. I'm curious, was it established, or was it an established thing before the movie even started? I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like invented.
Yeah, because the film begins with the signal being turned on, all the criminals getting scared.
Yeah, that's true.
Gotcha. So yeah, I guess the idea is, or I guess what the show wants you to think is, well, Penguin came out on top, but it's not going to be for long because they're calling in the Batman to deal with them, right? And maybe that could be a double cross from the that politician guy that Penguin was working with.
That is true. Yeah, or maybe the mayor's something out. They have the suspicions. I mean, it could be we could get like a scuffle between the Penguin and Batman, I suppose, in Batman Part 2. That's what starts it off, and then we get to the main villain.
But it could also be a setup for another. Yeah, it could be another setup for another character. I can't help but notice that what's his name is kind of like a male version of Harley Quinn.
Who?
Julian,
Yeah.
yeah.
He works at Arkham. He kind of falls in love with one of the prisoners there.
That's actually a good comparison. Yeah, I see that. Do we think Sophia Gigante will be in any of the Batman movies as well, appearing forward? Do you think they'll make more use of her?
Surely.
Because I'm surprised they left her alive.
Well, because what I was getting at was, if there's anybody else that they could be setting up, it might be, here's another way it could go, right? You have Julian, who has the credentials to get into Arkham. I'm assuming that's where they put Sophia after she got arrested, right? Breaks her out. Bat signal, right? And then she's going to be after Penguin.
I think you guys are looking too much into this. I think the bat signal is just another regular Jim Gordon putting on the bat signal. I mean, I think that's exactly the reason. It's I think the reason you're looking into it a bit more is because of how the episode ended. It's very symbolic how the episode ends when Eve says no one's in your way now, and then the bat signal comes on. That's supposed to sort of tell you, right, Batman, you know, Batman is the one standing in Penguin's way, but not literally. That's symbolic for, right, he's the one standing in his way. But I think it's just another generic night in Gotham, and Jim's put the bat signal on. It's just, you know, and that's just meant to keep a bit of continuity and to inform you that, you know, Batman will be standing in Penguin's way. But no, just going back to sort of your guys' general dislikes of the show. I mean, I will disagree with most of them. I think that in general, no, maybe I'm wrong about this, but this is just my feeling on it. I think people have been too desensitized by all the messaging in recent entertainments, that they see a lot of stuff there that perhaps are remnants of messaging, but I think people look too much into it and sort of get a bit too defensive. I think that the idea of a woman having a mother who she believes took her own life because of mental health issues, I can see someone actually setting up a charity to help others in that situation. I think it's totally realistic. I think it makes sense for the story. I think also the line about which Sophia says to Oz, you know, you'll have a dick, so you'll get a promotion, and people saying, oh, that's kind of full of messaging. I think though that it's not hypocritical when people say that, but they would be saying the exact opposite as a negative if Sophia was just to take power of the family, because people go, well, traditionally that's not how families operate, so they're also being woke by doing that. I think people would have the same criticism either of what they would have done. I think the one that you mentioned,
the one that you mentioned, I think it's all about the execution, because I laughed in that moment too, right? It wasn't this cringy thing, because it was the way that was executed. Like, oh, you have a dick, so you'll get promoted, right? Oz's reaction to that, and then kind of, I don't know, it's all about the execution, because you can do that in a way that's very much different. That's all I'm trying to say. But yeah, go on.
And of course there is validity to people's criticisms. I just think that sometimes the reaction to it may be a little bit too fueled by desensitization to a lot of this stuff being hammered home. And I think the reason why I kind of go easy on Sophia is because Kristen Milioti is such a fantastic actress. I mean, the way she was able to convey Sophia and all of her emotions in this series is phenomenal. I mean, it's something in her eyes. She does a lot with her eyes as well that really, I mean, she's just so good. So I think that's the reason why. I mean, a lot of these female characters are portrayed by insufferable people who, you know, when they're acting, they're insufferable, and when they're not, they're insufferable. So everything comes across as insufferable. Whereas she comes across as very much talented actress who can mold herself into whatever is demanded of her. And I think also as well, and this is a bit of a disagreement I have with your guys' criticism, the whole idea of, the show's kind of throwing in some communist message because they're highlighting the whole laborers are not treated well, by the people running these big businesses. I think, again, that's a little bit too far of a stretch, because I mean, you can probably find anyone, in your family or friends you may have who perhaps have had like pay disputes with their employers. I think people seem to have this notion that, if you're against government, then you're somehow this far right person, and if you're against sort of businesses operating freely, then you're far left. I think there's something in the middle. You don't have to agree to understand. You can see from different perspectives, and I can see things like that happening in the real world, and it's not some forced thing to push some messaging. But again, this is entertainment we're talking about, so
Yeah, I think I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not forced, and that's what I like about it, because they put these things in. Traditionally, or at least, in the last decade or so, these have been kind of red flags, whereas they're actually using them in a way that makes sense for the story. They're actual plot points that are like, Like it makes sense in the world, right? And
yeah, and
it's not
also
heavy-handed.
Penguin takes.
It's not forced down your throat, you know.
Yeah, and also Penguin takes a kind of very neutral position because he does criticize those at top because he wants to be the one at the top. But also in episode 5,
Yes.
I think, he confronts the councilman and says, all you people in government, you take all of our tax money and you just give it to yourselves. You don't care about people. So that's a criticism of government as well as, you know, businesses, which they also do throughout the series. So I think it's very realistic, neutral. Yes, it's a neutral stance, and the messaging is very much, you know, centrist, if anything. But I do understand some of your criticisms because there are those things there which, if made by someone else, would have been an entire plot point and would have gone in a different direction. But yeah, you're right when you say that. You know, these are just kind of throwaway lines. It's not the basis of the show. That they're handled well.
Yeah. But and your point about Sophia being a compelling villain too is you've seen so many other things where like the female villain tries to act like a man and it's not executed well, right? Sophia acts like a villain in the way that she can. Like there's that one scene where right after she gets dinner with Oz,
she's very feminine, but like really aggressive in a way.
Exactly. Yeah, she's not trying to be masculine. But
like for example, when she kidnaps Penguin in episode 1, she does that by ordering her bodyguards to go and knock him out. Whereas if this was made by Disney Marvel, she would have pulled out some screamer sticks, would have started doing backflips and beat the shit out of him.
Exactly. And the one scene that really I think captures what you were saying was how she conveys this threatening aura just with her face was after she gets dinner with Oz. She goes from a smiling face to a deadpan face, and that says it all, right?
Yep. Okay, to finish out this live stream, what were your guys' favorite episode? I'm curious to know, or like favorite moments. To kind of end it off, because I know, honestly, I think the first episode was my favorite. Even though the rest of the show is good, I think that first episode, I think I watched it like twice, once by myself and one with my older sibling, and I just think it does so much legwork for the rest of the show just to keep me hooked in. Like, with Sophia, her being intimidating, and I was just thinking that away how to get out of this situation. Adopting Vic into his kind of crowd. It definitely got me vitally interested.
There was a couple. Okay, if we're just talking about like favorite moments, I don't know if because I watched them all at the same time, so it was kind of like I watched an 8-hour movie. So, but there was a couple of moments. One of them where I genuinely thought it was going to go somewhere, which was when Sophia and the Maroney dad were like making dinner together, and it's just kind of like, hey, you need this stuff cut, and it's it was this really just sentimental moment of the show, and then it's like the cherry on top of that was at the end of it when like he breaks down because he just remembered that his family is dead, right? And like that was just it was really well executed. It just I don't know how to say it was very sentimental, but I think the thing that I like best about the show was the double twist with so yeah, you find out that Oz killed his siblings, and that was one of those things where like I'm not surprised. Then you find out that his mom knew about it the whole time. Well, it was a twist, but it wasn't a twist that was like completely out of left field. Like his mom knew the whole time, and like immediately knew, right? Because she found the flashlight, and she was then gonna get him killed, and then she decided to change her mind and mold him into the villain that he is. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's like you think Penguin's dark? She's such so much worse. And I don't know, I really liked that that kind of a twist. And so yeah, I would say, well, was that episode 8 that was revealed? 7 or 8?
Yeah.
I
was
like
just
the finale.
see, I'm not sure if.
And the way Sophia killed her whole family, that was pretty good.
Yeah, that was good too. But I'm just like thinking, what was it Oz's intention to kill them, his brothers?
His brothers? I think that he was aware of the possibility that they would die in there, and he didn't say
in the
lied.
moment. I think in the moment, no, but like after he just ignores them and doesn't tell her, that's some evil shit, you know. Just waiting on them, not even telling anyone.
I think you're
especially
you're right.
when he smiles as he's looking out in the rain.
Yes, but I think what it was, is he locked them in there and he said, "Good luck finding your way out," or something like that, expecting that there might be another way out. But then he gets home, he lies about them, going to the movies, and then he kind of like gets comfortable with the idea of it just being him and his mom.
Yeah.
And I think that's when he made the decision not to say anything. He kind of,
I'm sorry, that's just depressing. I love my siblings, and seeing a guy do that just sends chills down my spine and makes me hope Batman will beat him to a pulp.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So yours was the first episode. I think mine would be the finale then, yeah.
All right. Golden Age, what about you?
Well, this series is so interesting because it is very much a I don't know what the word is, but we've seen over the past like 5 to 10 years, there's these shows that they have a limited number of episodes and there's one story and whatever. So it's not like The Flash or Arrow, where like you can view an episode as a self-contained thing. It's kind of each episode builds up on the previous and adds to this story. But I would say out of all of them, this
favorite moments.
Episode 1 does. Yeah, well, episode 1 is really good because it introduces all of the plot elements and sets everything up neatly. You're going to all these different places, from the Iceberg Lounge back to his home with his mum, to the Falcone house. You're really setting up all these pieces. Episode 3 I actually really liked as well, because we do get to see Vic and build up on him, so he's not just this generic side character. There are many moments with him that are very good. Episode 4 I really like because we see a lot with Sophia, and I just love the brutality of Arkham. So I would say like the choices for me are probably like episode 1, episode 3, episode 4, episode 7, and obviously the finale. Episode 7 I really like, because I like seeing those flashbacks, and particularly the actors who play young Oz and young Francis, because they're just so good. I mean, usually when you have these actors playing younger versions of these characters, you can kind of see a bit of the current day character in them, but usually you can't really see them growing up to be the characters we know in the present, whereas those actors are very good, and you see a lot of the characters we know in them, and I loved all the scenes with them. But I would say probably episode 1 and episode 8 I would say probably my favorites, because I think episode 1 does a good job of setting everything up. Episode 8 successfully brings it home. I mean, that's something that everyone was thinking as we were watching this. They were going like, well, we've had a load of these shows which start out great but don't end so well, and this one successfully delivered on that. So even though there are some amazing moments throughout, I think the fact that they were able to hook us in after everyone being like, oh, this show's going to be nothing, so after episode 1 people are like, right, I'm in, and then episode 8 for it to finish strong, I think that's what this series does so well. It sets up everything really well, and it knows where it's going, and that's why the show is so successful.
And to your point, one of the other shows as an example that didn't stick the landing was WandaVision, and it was because she had no consequences, whereas in this one there's consequences. Right.
I really wanted to.
I love the first. I love the first 4 to 5 episodes. Like the first 4 to 5 episodes of WandaVision are like 10 out of 10. I love them. I love that each episode is this different style. It plays on all these different eras of television. It's great. And then the end, it kind of everything just gets so drowned out. But I love the first 4 to 5 episodes, which is why the ending is a bit. I mean, here's the thing. Looking back on WandaVision, I see the issues in the final episodes, but at the time I actually really liked it, and it was one of those shows which now I feel like we've escalated a little bit. Like back even in the WandaVision days, which is only a few years ago, right? You could like the issues are there, but some people only really notice them once they're pointed out to them, which is the case with me. Whereas something now with entertainment's fallen so far in the past 3 years, everyone can sort of see the issue.
Yeah.
So I still really like WandaVision because it is sort of well written. It's just what's written near the end is not particularly very good.
Well, and
I hate everything else.
Yeah, and so Penguin, it feels like there was a unified vision and direction from beginning to end, whereas with WandaVision, if you believe, I don't know if it's rumor or if it's confirmed that the original ending was supposed to be Doctor Strange coming in and helping her, which is what all those commercials were supposed to be teasing, but then it had gotten changed because some executive producer came in and didn't want, a man coming in to save the day. Yeah. And so, I could see a world where something similar happened on this show where, somebody comes in and says, oh, you have to make Sophia, come out on top. You can't show Penguin as being successful or anything like that. Right.
It's crazy that the Penguin is so like, the quality is so consistent because I believe Lauren LaFranc wrote the first and final episodes, but all the other episodes are written by totally different people each time. And the fact that each episode maintains that quality while different people are writing all of them, it's insane. But it goes to show that they went in with a vision, they wanted it done, everyone sort of knew what they were doing. There was no room. And that's what this show does so well. There's no like nowadays in all these Marvel movies, you always have this like throwaway comedic line, or you'll have a scene where it doesn't need to be there, it can be taken out. But every single scene in this season of television matters, and it's there for a reason. All the lines make sense. It's just everything. There's not like one thing I think you can really cut out of it. It's just it's so well done, and they know. Well, they knew that they had 8 episodes. They had this limited time. They needed to make it work, and they did that.
You got me thinking. I would much prefer, instead of any more movies, just make a new season with a different villain. So, no more Penguin. You have another season of the show with the same creative team, but it's called Mr. Freeze or Hugo Strange or something. Yeah, Clayface. Right. You do that continuously, and then I would be down for that for sure.
I would be pretty down for that. Like, maybe continue this world in TV format,
Yeah, I don't know if it needs a movie.
Yeah, or do some like sort of anthology format where they'll do their 2 Batman films. They may not do a third, and just like they can do James Gunn's thing, but then every so often create a new season of a different villain, and you can have your little like references in there. Like again, the Penguin works if you've seen the Batman, but it also works if you haven't seen the Batman. There's those references to keep that world building going, but it's very. I mean, again, I know you disagree with this, but I'd really like to see this universe really fleshed out. I would love numerous Batman films. I would love to see these villains have the time that they need, because my problem with Batman films and why I think Batman is more suited for television is that usually in these Batman films you have a villain who's introduced, then an hour later they've died, and you'll have like the Joker, who's this big villain in the comics. He's been around for all these decades, he's done all these things, and then in this universe he's brought in and killed in like a couple of hours. It's ridiculous. Whereas I would love to see this universe properly given the time to shine. Even if we don't have another Batman film after the next one for many years, just I want to see a full-fledged universe with all these different villains, and I want to see all of them given a chance. I don't want the Batman, the Penguin, the Batman Part 2, right, done, in the drawer, never seen again. Because then when we get to James Gunn, we've we've got to build everything back up again. We got to have the first Batman film, then another one, and then that could just be thrown away. I really want them to stick with one universe and really build on it. And if they do these singular seasons of television, then they can do that, and they don't have to rely on bringing back all the cast for all these different things. They can, properly start to, build up some consistent lore.
I think Batman the Animated Series is a good. To your point, it's much a better vehicle for Batman villains, because you get, like, let's just say Penguin, right? You have multiple episodes that establish Penguin as a Batman villain, but then towards the end, in the last season, you get, like, he tries to go on a redemption arc. He tries to fit into modern society and tries to turn over a new leaf, right? And doesn't quite work out. And you get that with kind of all or most of the villains, in that show. Another one is Poison Ivy. Like, she goes and tries to start a family, and on the surface it looks like she's living a normal life, but actually she's, like, behind the scenes still up to no good, And so you get these really complex story arcs for villains over multiple episodes that, you have recurring characters. I think television episodic is a much better vehicle for Batman Rogue
definitely. If we get more shows like this, like the Penguin, of the same quality, then I'm all for it. But where I draw the line is making Clayface an actual actor with it. Stop. Like, do not do that. To your credit, they did give Penguin a top hat and the suit and everything. All right, good. Only missing the monocle. Yeah. But it's like, don't be autistically allergic comic book stuff. My only point of criticism. I really despise that. Yeah,
because they, like, it still has to be the character Penguin, and so there has to be a reason for him to have the name Penguin.
Mm-hmm. You can't, but based on comics, if it's next to no connection, like like the actress for Sophia Falcone did say that she loved the comics. So if a situation like that occurs, I'd like to think like they like to say, hey, no, it's more like this. My main sticking point with this is adaptation. I'm worried they might mess it up in the future. But
how much of this show do you think was because Colin Farrell fell in love with the character and he wanted to keep doing it, take it in this direction?
I don't think it was Colin Farrell. I think it was more so trying to build up the crime in Gotham City. I think that was and Penguin was kind of like an afterthought that it was about him. I think that's what the main objective, I think, of this show. I think the first thought was to develop the crime world. All right, who do we choose to develop the crime world of Gotham? The Penguin. Yeah. And then they started to do work on the Penguin character himself.
And I think the end of the movie kind of set that up too, where he's kind of the last one left standing.
Because I think it's kind of silly that they would think, like, what's the most interesting thing in this movie that we could do a show on? The Penguin, of course.
Well, I'm just wondering. I've got this vision in my head that, like, in the pitch room, you had Colin Farrell coming in and saying, I could do so much more with this character. This was set up, and then I could take it in this direction. I think it'd be really good. I'm just wondering, like, how much was he involved in the pitch and getting it financed?
Anyway, let's round this up because we're nearly hitting the 2 hour mark, and I did say it'd be less than 2 hours.
Okay.
Any final statements from you, Kratos, or Golden Age? Would you like to plug in anything or of that?
Oh, yeah, that would be a good point. Speaking of Batman the Animated Series, we should watch that.
Oh, definitely.
So every Wednesday, let me get you the link to this. So every Wednesday we do movie nights with True Pump, and we've been watching a lot of anime movies. We watched a lot of Studio Ghibli stuff. And
what did we watch 2 days ago?
That was Summer Wars. So we watched The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. Think before that, right? Which I like that movie. But let me get you this link and
drop it in the chat.
Yeah, there you go. So that's linked to the Fellowship Discord. We do movie nights over there. We also do Saturday movie nights with Cloud. We've been watching a bunch of 80s classics that he's never seen. So general idea is we do movie nights. If there's people who if you have blind spots and you haven't seen something, then we'll try to watch it. And there was plans at one point to watch Batman the Animated Series with you, so maybe we get that on the schedule.
There's a lot of episodes though. That's the problem. So before we finish it, it'd be like a year.
Yeah, we'd have to maybe I could just pick out a selection of them to watch.
Yeah, definitely. And we have watched a bit of Chainsaw Man, which we.
Oh yes, we got to continue that. That's a great show.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's apparently meant to be a movie, season 2 movie, but there's been no updates on it whatsoever. So.
But yeah, go join the Fellowship Discord. And there's a lot of other stuff in there. And yeah, you can find me on Twitter. That's all I got.
Yep. Golden Age. Do you have anything?
I will finish off by saying that The Penguin is a perfect series. There are minor problems, but I don't really consider them problems. I consider them just like little inconveniences. This is a show which I can comfortably say is like an 11 out of 10 for me. I think it's very much on the level of Daredevil. I mean, Daredevil is a very different show, and I mean, I'm more of a DC person anyway, so I'm kind of a little bit biased, but I think this is a perfect series, and I hope that we get more like this, whether it's like in this universe or whether just other quality other shows with the same quality as this. I think that Colin Farrell and Kristen Milioti should win all the awards because they've done a fantastic job, and hopefully we'll get to see them. We're going to see more of Colin, but hopefully we see more of her in some of the upcoming stuff set in this universe. So I congratulate everyone who worked on this. They did an amazing job. They should feel very proud. I think 2 of the 8 episodes are in the top 100 highest rated episodes of television of all time, which very deserved in my opinion. And I just thank them because I had 8 weeks where I was actually looking forward to watching something which I haven't had in many years. So I remember every week it's like, right, I can't wait until the start of next week where I can watch another episode of The Penguin. And I'm like, oh no, I've only got 1 episode left. Oh, there's nothing anymore. There's nothing else for me to watch. But no, I thank them for giving me those wonderful 8 weeks full of love, excitement, speculation. So I've had a great time over the past 8 weeks. As for me, you can check out my channel. I talk about all sorts of pop culture stuff, whether it's DC, Marvel, Harry Potter, Doctor Who, Star Trek, whatever it is. So yeah, I'm sure you'll love what I have to offer. But thank you for having me on this stream. It's been great.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you always on.
Great to meet you too.
Links. Yeah. Links in the description. I'll put the Discord link in the description as well. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. As for me, what would I do a next live stream on? I did say Joker 2 after live stream. I'm like, what am I gonna do a stream on? And the guys will like saying, oh, do a stream on the Penguin and it finishes. And yeah, now what do I do a stream on? I guess there might be something in the books. I might watch Nosferatu. That's in the New Year's. That looks like an interesting movie, and I might.
Have you seen Tulsa King yet?
I haven't finished it. I watched most of season 2. Yeah,
I've been meaning to watch that. I hear that's really good.
It's pretty good. So yeah, I guess keep an eye out for a stream on Nosferatu. I'll probably invite Capsule Opinions, because he kind of likes niche movies like that. And he really likes the filmmaker behind it. So I reckon you guys can expect a stream on Nosferatu. Apart from that, I don't have any immediate plans in terms of content for this channel. Sorry that it's been very in and out, but yeah, life just gets in the way sometimes. But anyway, thank you everyone so much for watching. Thank you guests for joining me. I will see you guys later.
Yeah,
Bye.
Bye.